All right, so here we go. Yes, it looks like Blizzard will be making changes to your favorite class in the very near future based on critical feedback from the Diablo 4 beta. And we've got new responses from the dev team about class balancing, how PvP is more of a focus this time around, new upcoming improvements, undiscovered legendary items, and a big PSA that yes, there is a rarity above legendaries. And by the way, if you missed it, for my subscribers of my channel here, I'm doing a big PS5, Xbox Series X, and Nintendo Switch giveaway. To enter, see those details in the pinned comment. But yeah, I think we should start here with this headline right here. It says, Diablo 4 manager says classes shouldn't always feel equally balanced. This was from Blizzard's Rod Ferguson. And let's get into it. This is very interesting stuff. It says right here, speaking to enemies, Jack Tucker, Ferguson acknowledged that balancing would play a larger part in Diablo 4 since the game will place more emphasis on player versus player interaction. So they have to really consider PvE and PvP when it comes to balancing. Furthermore, it goes on to say this. However, Ferguson shared that although classes should feel balanced to play against each other, not every class should feel as powerful at the same time as others. There's a lot of balance there, but the trick around balance is that it's a balance over time, not a balance of the moment, shared Ferguson. Not all classes at level 5 should have the same power. Let me know what you all think about this one, because it kind of explains what is going on here, considering that a lot of people think that, hey, the Barbarian is a bit weaker than, say, the Sorcerer or even the Rogue. But also, we're going to talk about class balancing in just a moment, because some interesting things are going to be happening. Furthermore, they go on to say this, due to the enchantment specialization, sorcerers will have the most skills of any class because with barbarians having 4 weapons, they will have the most legendary slots of any class. When you take that across all of them, there will be different points in time where a barbarian is in some ways a little underpowered compared to some of the other classes, say the first 10 to 20 levels. And that's why we're feeling that, because we are in the beta, but things change when we're talking about the full game. Check it out right here. It says, but when you get to level 30 to 40 and legendaries are falling a lot, barbarians can be super strong, Ferguson continued. He goes on to say this, there are things around skill gap, which I think is built into it. I think the agility and mobility of a rogue is hard to play. The Necromancer that has 12 skeletons fighting on their side that they can just send out and fight. And it's interesting to me because I feel like perhaps the game is also designed this way intentionally because perhaps they want certain players to have an easier time with other classes. So I guess you would say it's funner. Then again, some of us like playing as a barbarian because it's more challenging. So I think that's a different perspective to this, because I know myself, I've been playing barbarian, and one of the reasons why I love the barbarian is because he is challenging to play as. Now, furthermore, goes on to say, Joe Shelley, game director for Diablo 4, added that when you're balancing something to be equal, you can make the mistake of balancing it to be the same. So basically, you have a problem where you can accidentally make the game feel too similar between class to class, and that can also be an issue for sure. Furthermore, it goes on to say this, however, the director acknowledged that there were a few underperforming areas, such as the Barbarian's Hammer of the Ancients and the Sorcerer's Lightning abilities, that the studio would be taking a look at. So, some things are going to be changing with these classes in the future. And it's obvious to me that they're taking your feedback from the beta periods to really adjust things for when launch comes around. So I do expect them to make adjustments, whatever they may be, to every single class. So some interesting stuff going on there. Let me know what you think about class balance right now, how you are feeling about it. But yes, we have even more replies from the dev team. Let's get straight into it. This was posted out on Twitter. It's come from Mr. Lamas SC, who says this, Diablo 4's first beta was a decent time overall. I think it is a complete step up from Diablo 3, although I think it still functions very similarly to Diablo 3 in its mechanics, and many pieces were taken from it. Diablo 4 has smooth combat, mid-itemization, bad UI, solid graphics, too much unskippable dialogues, NPC wait time, bad repetitive dungeons, fun world bosses, decent trade potential, and a kind of bland skill tree that too few skills allowed on your hotkeys. Biggest fear is if they don't improve dungeons, the game will become very stale in the in-game, since that is the core loop. Also fear we will be flooded with rare and legendary items, and it will just turn into a salvage fest. Overall, 5.5 out of 10 right now, but I think with some changes, they could easily get it to a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 right there. So wow, that's actually quite the harsh score there, at least in my opinion. But yeah, let me know if you agree with that score or not. It seems like there was some responses there agreeing with that. But let's get into the response from Blizzard. This one comes from community manager Adam Fletcher, who goes on to say this: good feedback. Some of the unskippable stuff, he's talking about dialogue and cutscenes, was a bug in the beta. We will have a post-beta learnings to go over with the players in more detail once we are through it. So yes, we're going to be getting a deep dive into the in-game systems as well as some sort of post-launch feedback or post-beta launch feedback. So that's going to be cool to get an idea of what they're going to be further doing in more depth to the classes and bounds of the game. Now we have this one from Drothier, who goes on to say this: are there a lot more legendaries we haven't seen yet? I really like the ones that alter or change the way you play. I saw this in a leaked video and it was so cool. He goes on to highlight this legendary, which is very cool. Maybe we will discover this once we get to play as the Druid. I'm not too sure, but it says your wolf companions are now werewolf, but the werewolf companions deal 95% additional damage and can spread rabies. And of course, that's for the Druid only, so that is very cool to see. And Joseph Ipora of Blizzard says this right here: there are many, many more legendary aspects and items than what can be found in the beta, not to mention unique items. And this is where it gets very interesting for sure, because check out this PSA right here. It goes on to say this: there is a rarity above legendary called unique. Diablo 3 legendaries equal Diablo 4 uniques. I'm seeing this cause a lot of confusion. Here's how itemization works. So rare, we've got 5 random affixes, legendary 4 random affixes, and plus 1 random legendary affix. Now unique gets interesting because we've got 4 predetermined affixes plus 1 predetermined unique affix. Now uniques are very rare and only drop at level 50 plus in the appropriate world tiers. These are the powerful and build-defining legendaries and uniques from Diablo 3, Path of Exiles, etc. You can think of legendaries in Diablo 4 as a new rarity tier that was added to fill gaps between rare and unique. Use power of the aspect system to give players more levers to play with in regards to class-specific affixes before they're able to farm uniques. And we've got some replies about this. Some people really do not care for how this is actually arranged. So check it out right here. This one says this: they really shouldn't call them legendaries. They should just make them purple and call them epic, or white, blue, and call them blessed. And this one got a ton of upvotes. Let me know how you think legendaries, rarities, and uniques should be organized in terms of itemization in Diablo 4. I'm kind of curious what you guys have to say about this one. Now, I've got another question here. It goes on to say this: what about that some legendaries were tradable in the beta? Was that a bug? Because beforehand, we knew that that was not supposed to be the case whatsoever. This, yep, legendary items shouldn't be tradable, so that is something we are checking out. So yeah, don't expect to be having an open trade system in Diablo, or the way it's going to work is anything under legendaries, as I recall, that is going to be tradable. But once you are talking about uniques and legendaries, those things are not going to be tradable whatsoever. Also, let's go ahead and get into your top comments for my most recent video. So let's do this. Let me tell you what, there were a lot of excellent comments under my most recent video, which was this one right here. It goes on to say this: the dev team just gave an update and big concerns. What's next? So yeah, check out that video if you missed it. And remember, yes, for a chance to win a PS5, Xbox Series X, or Nintendo Switch, be sure to enter that giveaway. Always check the pinned comment for those details. But let's scroll on down to Hades Actually, who says this: the fact that they added the Butcher as a random encounter is my favorite thing. Hell yes, you guys may have noticed at the beginning of this video, I ran into the Butcher and I had heard about him and I freaked out. I was in complete panic mode. Let me tell you what, I was fighting for my life. Did actually eventually best me, of course, but yeah, I will be back. and get my revenge. Now, Anti goes on to say this right here. People complained that the Barbarian is too hard compared to the other classes, but I would like to look at it different. I think that the other classes are too easy. I love the challenge the Barbarian provided me. It felt like I actually needed to upgrade and fight for my life. While when I played the Sorceress, it was a bit like how I felt with Diablo 3, too easy. And again, I have my own opinions about this. I'm wondering if this is intentional. I really love the feel of the Barbarian. Some people say, oh man, he's completely useless. And there's things you could do with this character, with this class. So many different builds that I have experimented with already that, in my opinion, do work. Now, in some cases, they do not work. So I'm curious to see if they're going to have to adjust specific abilities within the Barbarian. Maybe buff here or there, but I don't want it to be like where it's just all of a sudden super easy. But then again, world tiers do alleviate that kind of worry. But yeah, it's interesting to see how Blizzard could potentially be approaching classes. Perhaps they want a class that is considered easier to play as because of newcomers jumping into Diablo for the first time ever. That is one thing that they might be considering, but again, difficulty settings alleviate that sort of worry. Now we have Devious, who goes on to say this right here. I spent 3 days playing on a 15-inch laptop, and I enjoyed every second of it. The rogue class felt fun and rewarding, and when I finally got the right skills put together, I was destroying dungeons on World Tier 2 with little to no problem. Looking forward to the next weekend to try some new classes. Yeah, and I'm also looking forward to World Tier 3. Maybe I'm jumping ahead too much here, but, you know, I was like ready to go because that's how I got my Barbarian. I was like, man, you know, I'm barely having to heal myself at certain points. This right here is actually my older build that we are seeing. And then as we keep going, this is more of my newer build that you are seeing right here, where I have this, I call him the Earthquake Bleeding Barbarian. It is crazy what you can do with this class. Now we have Christopher, who says this: I'm enjoying the beta, played 19 hours so far, can't wait to see the rest on release day. Thank you for this breakdown. Don't want to invest too much time, so things still feel fresh in a couple of months. I hear ya. I'm doing my absolute best, by the way, when it comes to my videos to not include story spoilers. So yes, I'm going to absolutely do everything to not spoil this game, and I get where you're coming from. But yeah, there it is, the latest happenings around Diablo 4. I have you guys covered, so stay tuned for more. If you are new, welcome. Smack that subscribe button. Check out the pinned comment for that giveaway, and I will see you all next time. Take care.